Hello everyone, welcome back to the Infinicrypt Devlog series. This week we're going to be talking about lighting and the journey that it took to get to this point. Just a reminder, if you're interested in following along with this devlog series, go ahead and subscribe. I'll be posting a new devlog every couple of weeks, showing off what I'm working on and giving some insights to my development process. Without further ado, it's time to talk lighting. So when I first started Infinicrypt, it didn't have any lighting, mostly because I didn't understand shaders at the time. And it took me a really long time to develop the shader into what it is now. For a really long time, it was only capable of doing one light at a time, and I centered that around the player. The game was really dark most of the time, and so when I finally got the lighting into a spot where I could do more than one light at a time, I kind of went crazy with it. I put lights everywhere because I was so excited to finally have like diegetic lighting in my game and to fill each one of the corridors with these smoky torches and everything. Unfortunately, I think it was way too much. I think I really overdid it, especially with the last couple of weeks of me working on lighting. By putting lights everywhere and making sure that the game wasn't too dark, I actually just made the game back to what it was initially, which was how it looked without any shaders, which completely defeated the point of the lights in the first place. Why even have darkness if it's just all going to be lit up perfectly throughout the entire dungeon? On top of that, I was really bothered by the color coming off of the lights and how it made the ground look and like how the environment looked when it was all like tainted yellow from the torches. With the benefit of hindsight, I was wrong. The game just looks better. It looks smoother, more warm, I guess is the word that I'd use for it. But yeah, so the way that I went around fixing this, I decided to add a global multiplier for the entire floor that's set right as the floor finishes generating. It picks a number between about 50% to 85%, and the rest of the lights for that floor will have a chance to be inactive. This was a thing that previously only applied to torches, but now it'll apply to torches, standing lights, the lanterns, and candles. This already adds a lot of depth because having even a single light missing from a room completely changes how it looks. But I decided to take it one step further, and I added a new floor modifier that completely removes all lights, and so every single light will be inactive, and on top of that I actually end up drawing the shading twice. So now lights are twice as intense and the shadows are twice as dark, which really adds to this like dark, mysterious vibe of the Infinicrypt, and it adds more variance into the gameplay. Another issue I had with the lights early on is that I really focused on getting the diegetic lights into the game. So those are like the torches and the lanterns, those gratings that have like the colored lights coming out of them. And I kind of just completely neglected to tie the lights into the other systems within the game. This was really most apparent with the hallway that's filled with those fire traps. It looked really weird without any lights in there and having the fire be dark and not emit any light. And that also tied over into the wizard. A lot of their spells have big explosions and like arcane bolts, and yet they didn't light up the environment around them. So the last 2 weeks I've spent just doing that. Tying in lights to just about everything, building new systems to allow for lights that can expand and contract. This was particularly a challenge with a lot of the lightning spells and a couple of the items like Enchanted Hook, because they create a big line that goes across the screen and I needed lights to fill up that line. But I didn't want to have to go through all of the effort of figuring out how to make the shader that I have right now work with line lights. So I found another way around it, and that came in the form of just putting a ton of lights along the line at different increments. And I'll come back to that later because it created some very interesting side effects that I ended up turning into full features. In particular, though, some of my favorites from the lighting system have got to be the way that Scorcher looks now, just the way it lights up the entire room with this like brilliant orange light. It feels amazing. I also quite like when the knight has a smite charged up and they have this holy light glowing around them. The way it looks, I mean, it makes you feel like you really are a knight cutting through the darkness and like smiting out these evil foes. Going back to the line light problem, as I was working on Lightning Bolt, it was creating so many lights at a time that my lighting system actually overloaded and started to ignore some of the lights that had been created earlier in the room. So that means that anything that was already in the room, like the torches, the lanterns, all of that kind of stuff, it stopped processing them entirely. And it created such an interesting effect that I just decided to make it a full-fledged feature. It looked really cool. The way it draws the focus in on what the player's doing was just super interesting. And so I made that a full feature and started using it in a bunch of different areas in the game. The most noticeable being the phylacteries. When they explode, they dim all of the lights in the room to really bring the focus in on what's happening. And the laser for the Magus completely dims the entire room, which really brings the focus in on this huge attack that needs to be avoided at all costs. Another thing that really helped solidify how the lighting looks now, I talked with one of my friends, Luke Phillips, who he really likes writing shaders, and I had him work in some dithering overlay over the shadows, and it immediately bumped up the visual style of everything. I mean, it looks so distinct compared to how it did before. And that really isn't any more apparent than when you're fighting the Magus, and the way that the ghosts look with like this halo around them, and the pylons, the way it all looks, it's amazing, and I have to thank him very, very much. Also, I wrote more music. This track is called In Foul Darkness. It's fairly Renaissance-y, and it'll play as you get further and further down in the dungeon. I had a lot of fun writing it, and I hope you enjoy. And that'll do it for this devlog. Again, if you're interested in following Infinicrypt through its development, consider subscribing and joining our Discord server. Let me know what you think about the new visuals in the comments, and I'll see you all when I see you next. Bye-bye.